Welcome to the Boxing Gossip Podcast. We are live, edition number 95, 95.0. Will it be version 95.0 of David Haye this weekend? I've been working on that one. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button. Lots to discuss as ever tonight. Let me start by giving a shout out to a lot of the regular faces in the chat. Can see a lot of the usual suspects. So happy Wednesday to you all. Good evening. Thanks for tuning in. Delighted already to be joined by Tom, Jay, and Paul. Sherry's just dropped me a note running late. Unsure if he's going to be able to get on, and I haven't heard from Jet. But we've got at least the four of us, so lots of good stuff to discuss. Brief agenda for tonight. We're going to start by looking back at last week's boxing. We'll discuss some of the news in the sport. I guess we can touch on the Wilder versus Joshua offering. Josh Taylor versus Postol is an interesting one. And then, of course, we'll get on to previewing all of next week's boxing. Haye Bellew, Joyce Thomas, Ryder Cox, and, of course, Triple G, Marta Rosen as well. So, yeah, looking forward to this podcast. Lots of good things to discuss. And, yeah, hopefully it'll be a good show. I'm going to start with Jarrell Miller because I find Jarrell Miller one of the most in the sport, both in and out of the ring. You know, outside he talks about eating cheeseburgers. He's best part of 22 stone. In the ring, he's clearly talented. He's clearly got a lot of pros, but he's also got some glaring weaknesses, which, you know, make it hard to kind of assess him. All in all, for me, with Jarrell Miller, I think he represents something really different in the heavyweight division. And, you know, stylistically, he poses a real threat to some of the major heavyweights. But you just ask yourself, are those glaring weaknesses just a little bit too glaring? So as we get into that topic, I'm going to start by bringing in my man Irish Tom, who's been a long-term advocate of Jarrell Miller. And, yeah, Tom, I guess I'm keen to get your perspective on his fight this weekend against Johan Duhaupas and how you see the progression of Jarrell Miller.
Well, I just think it's, you know, it was more of the same. Like we talked about it last week where I was thinking, you know, it's just another one of these, you know, mid-tier heavyweights that he's just going to absolutely dominate. And I think he did it again, 10 rounds to 2. Some people had 9 rounds to 3. I think it's hard to give Duhaupas 3 rounds. But, you know, I think he looked flabby this time, Miller. I think, you know, he did look a bit heavy. But the thing is with boxing, people always go on about body beautiful and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's only a problem insofar as that it affects his output and does it affect his movement. And to be honest with you, I don't see much difference between him. But when he was, what did he come in the last fight? Was it 289 or something like that?
I think it's like 279 or something. So I think he's gone and put on about 25 pounds, mate.
Seriously, 25 pounds. Like, to that guy, like, it's like about a half a centimeter all the way around his body. But I think he did look a bit flabby. But I don't think it affected his performance too much. So all this stuff
too light in his last fight, Tom.
Yeah, I know Hatman is going on about that all the time, that he's probably thinking that, I think, what is he saying, that if he was lighter, he'd be able to punch more correctly. But I think that a guy like Miller, I think he's one of those fighters that he is what he is. Like, I've heard people saying he should get down to 240. That'd be impossible. You know, when you see him at 280, there wasn't that pick on him. You know, he was pretty shredded. You know, he's not like Anthony Joshua shredded, but he was pretty, you know, trim. And I don't see much of a difference. You know, if you think about it, like, when you're that big, the difference between 22 stone and 21 stone is not that much, you know, like, and if it doesn't affect your performance, go with whatever feels best to your own body. I think, I think he's a hard fight for any heavyweight in the world. But the thing is, we'll find out if his chin, there was rumors of him, he did sparring with Wilder, and Wilder apparently had to go to the hospital after sparring with concussion, according to Wilder. And according to Miller, it was dehydration. But we've heard that before with your man from what was his name? Stavern, yeah. So it's like, so I don't know. So we'll see if he has the chin, but definitely anybody up until, like, who hits as hard as, say, Povetkin or higher, I just think he runs over them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he has a huge amount of attributes. It's just a concern how easy he is to catch with the jab and how many punches he takes, Tom. I mean, the way DePaul was landing that jab, the way DePaul was landing that uppercut, for me, we're talking a very, very defensively frail fighter here. So it's all going to depend on that chin. I've got to say, he looks like he's got a look of someone who's very, very durable. You know, you assume it's going to take more than a paper cut to put him down.
That's true. But like the thing is, like, who did a better job on?
Oh, Tom, Jay, Paul, is it me or is it Tom?
No, I can't hear him either.
It's Tom, yeah. I can't hear him.
Lost him. Yeah, I've lost him.
It's Tom. Okay.
There is a God.
There is a God. Yeah, yeah. Tom, we've lost you, mate. If you can reconnect, we'll bring you back in. In the interim, Paul, let's bring you in onto this discussion with Jarrell Miller. I find it hard to work out where he stands, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I just think I just think he's a little bit basic. He's a bit. Happen did a video saying it was like Chisora 2.0. I think he's probably a bit better than Chisora, but he's just so wide open. I really don't see him giving any of the top guys hell the way Irish does. I really don't. I think he's been matched quite well. He's been, these are not guys that they're not quick guys. I think if he comes up against somebody with a bit of speed and a bit of movement, I think he probably just does become a bit befuddled, to be completely honest. He's entertaining to watch and he's good to listen to. But beyond that, I can't say I'm a huge fan, and I can't say I've really got one thing I did agree with Irish. It was really much of the same from him. I don't think we've seen anything different.
Let's say we stuck him in with a Joshua or a Wilder, and let's say that the first 3 rounds he ate a lot of straight punches from those guys, but showed a good chin, and kind of gave you the impression that he could take some of their shots. And I appreciate that's a big if. If he puts himself in that position, is he a hard guy to handle at that stage?
I think if he was able to bring somebody like Joshua into deep waters, then possibly, but that's a huge if. I mean, he's been matched. I mean, Fred Cassie, awkward, and that's about it. Gerald Washington, kind of like, I think Gerald Washington is a guy that was really sort of like I think emotionally he's like a little bit fucked up now after the Wilder beating. He hasn't looked like, I mean, not that he was that great shakes to start with, but he hasn't looked like the same fighter since that. He seems a little bit scared. The same with there's another guy that fought like that recently as well. And then Duhaupas, I mean, he's been looking pretty good against much of a muchness. Do you know what I mean? I think it's the heavyweight division. I think the chances that he's going to be eating shot after shot after shot like that from punches like Wilder and Joshua and still going to be there in 8 rounds. I don't care how big you are or how great your chin is. If AJ or Wilder catch you clean on the chin, you're going to sleep. Like, it's just as simple as that. And he's just too easy to hit. So I think, yeah, I mean, the question is a good one. And if it just is a big if for me. It's a big if.
Yeah. Paul, I'll just try and go back to Tom since he was mid-flow.
Surely.
And then I'll come back to you. Tom, do you want to have another go, mate? You're on mute, Tom.
Hi, hello.
Hello. Was that just
yeah
disconnection?
No, yeah, my PC just crashed, so I've just got my phone on here, and for some reason the volume is screwed up on it. So I can hear you, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay, good stuff. Did you want to say anything more on Gerald Miller, or has you got your full flow out, mate?
Well, I was just going to say that, like, who did a better job on Duhaupas, him or Wilder?
Probably Wilder, but comparable.
You know what I mean? So it's like, so I just think Jay, for example, doesn't know shit about boxing because he keeps slagging me about Gerald Miller, and we all know that Gerald Miller is going to be the next unified, undisputed #1 reigning heavyweight of the world for probably, as Stig on Twitter would talk about Tyson Fury, at least 10 years undefeated, I'd say, at the top.
10 years at the top. Tom, when we've got you, Daniel Jacobs, any thoughts or any comments you want to make on his performance?
Yeah, I watched that fight when I was doing a bit of work. I was watching it in the background, and I don't know, like this Polish guy, I don't know how that Polish guy ever made 154. He was a massive looking middleweight. He made Danny Jacobs look small. So how he made 154, I'll never know. He was a tough mother. He looked like one of these hitmen in some dodgy Russian mafia films. He was like an evil looking dude. Like, you would not want him to be like stalking you on the street or through a forest or something, man. I'd shit myself. He was seriously tough. He took a lot and he gave a lot. And maybe we'll find out this guy is better than we've been told. But I think that Danny Jacobs didn't look that good. I don't know whether he's struggling to make weight or whether he's been triple G'd, but I was not impressed with him. But we'll see. Maybe that guy's better than we expected. But I thought he didn't show good boxing. I thought he was getting hit a lot. The guy was pretty decent, but like, I don't think he was elite class or anything. Certainly was a fairly close fight. I think most people had it around 7-5 with a knockdown 7-4. Maybe you could make a case for 8-4, but it's hard to see anything. It's hard to give it 8-4. I think more like 7-5-5. But I think, I don't know. I was just shocked. I thought Danny Jacob, I thought he got outboxed a lot. That's the thing. The guy that put box around the back foot against Triple G, you could see that he wasn't able to do that against a guy that was his own size. So I thought the card, it definitely turned out to be a good card for Eddie. I think that was a pretty good fight for the headliner, and the Miller fight was a decent fight. Was there a third fight as well?
There was Katie Taylor.
Oh, Jesus. Let's not mention that. But, the top two, I thought it was a decent card for Eddie. But I didn't think that Jacob looked like any world beater. I certainly wouldn't pick him against any of the, I don't know, like him and Charlo's probably a good fight, but I think I'd nearly go, I think it probably, that's a 50-50-ish fight, It's hard to know. I wasn't too impressed anyway. I was disappointed in it, but maybe this guy's better than he was. Maybe that'd be.
Understood. Yeah. Okay. Cheers, Tom. I'll bring Paul back in as I caught him mid-flow, and then we'll come back to you in a little bit, mate. Paul, Daniel Jacobs. I started by saying Big Baby Miller. I don't know how good he is. Daniel Jacobs, I'm exactly the same with him. I really find it hard to rate this guy. You look at the Sergio Mora fight, you look at some of the other fights, and you think he's very beatable. Look at this fight, you think he's very beatable. You look at the Golovkin fight, you think he's a world-class boxer. You look at the Quillen fight, you think he's a world-class puncher. How do we rate that guy?
I don't know. I don't know. I agree. He's a bit of an odd one, isn't he? Because he doesn't seem to. I don't know, what kind of a fighter is he? I mean, like most fighters I look at and I'm like, right, he's a back foot guy. He's clearly a back foot fighter, or he's clearly an inside fighter, or he's a mid-range hooker, whatever. What's Daniel Jacobs? Like, he seems to reinvent himself every fucking fight. I mean, I also wasn't impressed with him at the weekend, to be completely honest. Maybe as Tom just said, maybe you know, this guy that he thought will end up sort of like he actually looked pretty good to me, to be completely honest. Maybe he'll end up, you know, being something a bit special, and that'll put it into certain perspective. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, he is a weird one to work out. He is a weird one to work out. Jacobs. I was never sort of like hugely sold on Jacobs anyway, to be completely honest. I think he might be one of these fighters that sort of like raises their game based on the level of the opponent, or the level of the sort of like occasion. There are fighters like that, and because to be completely honest, the best I've ever seen Jacobs was the Triple G fight. So
yeah,
like you say, he is a hard one to sort of like figure out. Yeah, he didn't look great. I think Charlo's just too aggressive. I think Charlo, I mean, one thing Jacobs has shown, he can be stopped. I think Charlo is a little bit too much for Jacobs. I think Charlo would win that fight. I think Billy Joe would box rings around him. And I think based on the other night, I think if he fought Triple G again, I think Triple G would probably stop him.
Yeah, it's interesting. His career hasn't massively progressed subsequent to that fight. You know, that fight was a kind of a huge shot in the arm for Danny Jacobs. He's 31 years old now, and he's had 36 fights. So I'm certainly not wanting to write him off, but you do wonder if maybe there were a few miles on the clock, and maybe even though he looked spectacular in that Golovkin fight, maybe it took something away from him. I've also got to say that since signing with Matchroom, and you know there being a lot of hype around that deal, you know, the two opponents for me have been disappointing. Both undefeated opponents, but both guys, I think, from the weight class below. Both guys without too much public perception, and I wonder if Paul's right in that Jacobs maybe is the kind of guy who will raise his level, you know, as he steps up in class, and maybe there's an element of that at play as well. Paul, any other comments on that card before I bring Jay in, mate?
Who else was it on? Who else was on it again?
Katie Taylor.
I to be completely honest, I didn't see the Katie Taylor fight. I know she's unified the title though, which is pretty impressive given the amount of fights she's had. I don't know how she looked or anything.
I didn't watch it. No.
Did anybody on the panel see it?
No,
Jay?
I didn't see it. I didn't see it. No, I didn't see it.
Irish, did you see it? Because I know you said, "Oh, we'll say no more about that" or whatever.
Did I say which? Did I see which?
Katie Taylor.
No, I've no interest.
I wondered why you said, "Oh, let's not talk about it" or whatever. I thought maybe it was a bad performance. Okay, cool. No, nothing more to say, to be honest, on that.
All right, let me bring Jay in. 100 people watching, about a third. Hit the thumbs up. Please smash that. That will get even more people joining. Thank you, guys. Jay, let's reheat this Big Baby Miller debate. If memory serves, you haven't always been his biggest advocate.
No.
Are you warm up at all?
No. I still see the same thing. He's obviously, I don't class him as a big puncher. He's not a big puncher. The last fight against Wack, I thought he had like pretty quick hands for such a big fella. And then even I watched the American commentary when I watched it, and they were saying, you know, he has got really quick hands, and I don't see that. I don't. He didn't seem like he had quick hands to me. The punches that he throws. The good thing about him, he does vary his punches. He's got good punch variation. He'll go to the body. He'll throw an uppercut. He'll go in for the hook. He'll go. You know, he has that. That is a good ability. But when he does throw the punches, they don't seem to come from from his feet, from his waist, from his legs. They seem to just come from the top half of his body, where he doesn't seem to generate the power. They seem to be tap, tap, tap punches. I mean, a tap to us is very different from a tap coming from Gerald Miller, obviously. But he does seem to tap the punches, and the power is not there. Again, they said he has great footwork. I don't see it. I don't see the footwork. I think it's just because he's so big that you know, they if he does show a little bit of footwork, they're saying he's got great footwork. He hasn't. He takes too many. In that fight against Duhaupas, he took punches. He took clean punches as well. When he fought Wack, you know, he was out of shape, well out of shape. Wack was. You know, you look at his fought. Who else he's fought? Fred Cassie. You know, what, he got beat by Adamek, he's beaten by Huey Fury, he's beaten by Brazil, he's beaten by Amir Mansour. You know, I don't see the record there. So for me, anyone that's got a jab and can keep any sort of distance from him wins the fight quite easily. And anyone with sort of power, if he gets hit clean, like he was getting hit clean on Saturday, not a lot, I grant you, but when he did get hit clean, if he got hit clean by a big puncher, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. Now, he may have this outstanding chin. He may be able to stand up to the punishment and the hard punches, but he's just going to be a mess. His face is going to be a mess because he takes them too clean. Again, they said he has great head movements. He doesn't. I don't. Where are they making this stuff from?
I think you're right, mate, that a lot of that is because they're saying he has it for his size. I mean, sometimes what he does is he tries to be stylish. He kind of drops his guard, stands on the inside and does this ducking and weaving thing. And yeah, it almost looks pretty, but he's quite easy to hit when he's doing that.
Yeah. He leaves himself open so much. And I think, as I said, if he comes against someone, he may be able to stand up to the punishment and may go 12 rounds, but the guy's going to get hit a lot. He's so open. And as I said, I don't think the power's there either. I don't think he's got this power for 300 odd pound guy. He hasn't got power. That guy hasn't got power. And I just don't see anything from him. I think purely maybe people see the size and people see the pressure that he puts on when he's on the front foot. But as soon he has to, at times when Duhaupas did put him on his back foot a little bit, he didn't know what to do. He couldn't handle it. He's got one plan, and that's the plan he goes with, and that's been successful so far. And the problem is when it's successful, like we've seen many other fighters in the past, if it's successful, they'll keep doing it until they come up against someone who can box a little bit. And no, Tom hates me talking about it, but if you're a back foot fighter and you've got a jab, he is probably the easiest opponent you're ever going to face. He will keep coming on, but he'll eat so much leather. It's how long he could last doing that. And I don't think it would be too long before, you know, he may get to a 7th, 8th round, but then it's going to be one of them that it'll be a cut, or he'll retire, or you know, something of that nature. Because I just, you know, if he had that knockout power, then, you know, fair enough. But he hasn't got the knockout power, and he hasn't got the slickness. He's too big to be to have the slickness. And as you said, he does do that duck. He does roll. He does try and roll a shot. Problem is, though, he doesn't do it enough, and he's too big to really get out of the way of those shots. So for me, I just do not see it at all. And my opinion hasn't changed in the slightest.
Interesting. Do you think that you talk about the back footwork, and I can see that, like with a fighter mega on their toes, mega, you know, using the size of the ring, etc., against a guy like a Joshua or a Wilder, who maybe do have those attributes but don't tend to fight in those ways. Do you think he has the potential to suck a guy like that into a wall, or do you think they're going to just stop him by hitting him from long range?
I think there are in fact, you can name it on, you know, you can name on a couple of fingers how many great back foot fighters there are in the heavyweight division. They are, you know, Joshua being the dominant, very straight line himself, doesn't have a back foot game really, likes to establish the centre of the ring by using that jab and that straight hand. And so the problem being is I don't think he could have the dominance on it because he will be eating it. He'll be eating it all night constantly, and that's the problem there. If he was a lot quicker, like, and he could duck a shot and come inside, and his inside game was good, then I could see him causing problems, definitely. But I just don't think he has the quickness of foot and the quickness of head movement and the ducking and that bob and weave skill to try and get underneath and get inside quick enough. And I think what Joshua can do very well, and Wilder to a certain extent, they have good reach, so they can keep opponents off. And especially with Wilder, for instance, hitting with that straight right, boom, boom. There's a good distance there before he's going to be able to get in close and start landing those combinations. Which, the one thing I will say about him, as I said before, he does have good combination of variation of punches and good combinations. He'll go to the body, he'll go to the head, he'll hit the uppercut. I mean, he hit like 4 uppercuts straight, one after another, in that fight, which was, he's quite impressive in itself. But the problem is he's getting in quick enough and closing the distance in quick enough to let those shots off. And I just think the bigger guys, and I don't mean size, I mean height-wise. I mean, how tall is Gerald Miller? I'm not sure.
6'3", 6'4".
6'3", 6'4". So if you've got the 6'6", 6'7", 6'9" guys, that reach advantage is really going to make a hell of a difference. And it's whether he can take the punishment that he's going to take trying to get inside, which I just don't see it, especially when these guys are so heavy-handed like Joshua and Wilder are,
Absolutely. And any comments, Jay, on Danny Jacobs before we move on to the news?
I think pretty much what everyone says. I pretty much agree with what everyone says. I do think I think almost the Gennady Golovkin fight was the pinnacle of his career. He's come back after obviously well documented a lot of problems. And that was the fight of his career, the biggest fight of his career, the best person he's ever been in. I mean, if you look at his record, before that, you got Sergio Mora, Peter Quillen, Sergio Mora before that, Caleb Truax, Gerald Fletcher. Not top elite fighters. This was the first elite fighter he went in with, and I think he raised his game dramatically for that fight and did really, really well, I thought. But I think he's a very good technical boxer, and he has a lot of ability. But I just think that loss there, that was his big moment, and not really clinching that. I think there's no worries he'll get another opportunity for a big fight. But whether I'm not sure that he will be able to pull out that kind of performance again.
Yes. We'll have to see him raise his game to that level again, and if he does, he remains in the bracket of elite for me. But I believe it when I see it, because recent performances haven't suggested that it's about to jump out. Okay. Actually, Jay, when I've got you, let me ask you about our first news story for the night. I think it's really one that needs to be discussed, actually, which is Josh Taylor versus Victor Postol. I did a video on it, and a lot of the comments surprised me, actually. A lot of the comments said that Victor Postol looked pretty terrible in his comeback fight from the Crawford defeat and actually got dropped. I haven't seen that fight. Maybe I need to, and maybe that does change things. But my take is this is crazy ambitious matchmaking, and Josh Taylor is going to have potentially an elite resume by the end of this fight.
Yeah, I think you've got to give him masses and masses of credit. But it's not like, I think it's not like, for instance, a Liam Smith stepping up to fight a Canelo. Let's get it straight. One Canelo, elite fighter, drugs or not drugs, but still seen at that time as an elite fighter. But number two, Josh Haye is a very, very talented kid. He's shown. I mean, from what we've seen him after only 12 fights, we've seen some really, really good performances from him, and shows he has a great ability. And you've got to admire him. You've got to admire his team for taking a fight like this. And if in a way it's kind of a win-win, in the sense that he's only had 12 fights, so he's almost seen as a prospect. But he's that good. He's developed very quickly, and they're obviously very confident that he can do a job on Postol. But at the same time, if he wins, it's a massive win. It's a big victory and it's a big statement. So I can only applaud him for doing that. And you know what? I think he's got a really good chance. I didn't look at it. I looked at it and went, yeah, great fight. Wow. Pulling out a big name. But I didn't think, oh shit, he's gonna have problems here. This is. I mean, by no way or means is it an easy fight, but it's a very, very, very winnable fight for Josh Taylor, definitely. And why not? I think he's good enough. So step up and do it. Let's not. So much nowadays. It's all about protecting protecting the winning streak to build the fighter. Look, those things have got. I think with the emergence of such good amateur fighters coming through, that's and taking these fights and wanting to progress quickly, I think that's becoming less and less relevant now, because almost, as we know, you can lose a fight and still be in the picture and still make money and still make a name for yourself. So for me, I have nothing but admiration for the kid, and I think he has a very good chance of winning that fight.
Yeah. I agree. And, some people may think I'm overrating Ahara Davis. Some people may think I'm overrating Miguel Vasquez. But I think those are both formidable opponents for this stage of his career. And to be fair, if he goes and beats, God, I've forgotten the guy's name, Victor Postol, I'd have minimal hesitation in saying he's the number one in the division at that point, to be fair.
Well, the old adage of you can only beat what's in front of you is definitely true with Josh Taylor. It's not like he's fighting people like Ahara Davis and getting by or winning it close. So he was dominating, and that's the thing. And he shows he is a level above what he is fighting. Again, we've probably seen that in the past. In a way, it's kind of like in a different sense, but Bradley Ski at the weekend, he was dominating everyone at British level, and he was saying he's world level, and we kind of thought, oh yeah, he's just winning this title right out, and then he's going to go up and he could possibly fight, I don't know, Jeff Horn, for instance, and possibly win a title, but he's better than what he's fighting. Obviously that didn't work out, and that doesn't always work out, but I think with someone of Josh Taylor's ability, I don't think there's a real question mark over that, and they know what they're doing, and Victor Postol has got some good names on his record, you know what I mean? But as I said, if he beats him, it's massive. The guy went, lost a unanimous decision to Crawford, but still went all the way. So yeah, I think it's a great fight, and yeah, big respect to him, and I hope he does the business.
Definitely. Tom, let's bring you back in on this one. I know we've talked about you being a long-standing representative for Jarrell Miller. I think it's certainly fair to say you're also very, very high on Josh Taylor. What's your thoughts on this matchup? Do you think he'll win?
Well, before you boys even heard of Josh Taylor, I said he would be a world champion. So let's just get that out there straight now. It's true. Go back to the logs from McGregor, and I said that Josh Taylor be a world champion, and possibly Scottish best fighter since Ken Buchanan. That might have been on the same show when he was 6-0.
Well, we were talking about him long before the McGregor fight. What are you talking about?
Who's that? Who's that interrupting me? Who's that interrupting me? It's terrible. Every week I come on this show, Paul bullies me, interrupts me. It's getting out of hand.
He's doing the Tony Bellew. He's trying to destroy the
fucking rat.
I'm trying to get under his skin.
Yeah.
Oh dear. No. Yeah. No. I think he'll be Postol. I think Josh Taylor. Well, that actual 140 division is heating up. You got Indongo, not Indongo. Indongo. Prograis is a serious puncher. Prograis is probably a top 10 pound for pound puncher. He is a serious puncher. So, and he's a decent boxer. So, like, he could very well be the number one. You've got Mikey Garcia, who's hanging around in there. Now I know he's going down. You got Postol. Postol's a good fighter. You got
Kiro Relic.
Relic's decent. He's not the same standard though, and you got Flanagan's a decent fighter again. You got Josh Taylor. But like, I think Josh Taylor and Prograis are the two best fighters in that division. And I think I was just looking there. I can't find any odds for that fight. I'd like to know what the odds are. But if it's in Scotland, isn't it?
Yeah, it's at the Hydro. And I'll tell you what else, that Prograis got the WBC silver title, hasn't he? Which means he'll probably get a shot at Ramirez. And I think this is an eliminator for that as well. So the chances are we'll get Josh Taylor, Regis Prograis, probably end of the year or something like that.
I'm very surprised.
Like next year,
the final eliminator.
Yeah. So we'll probably get that fight maybe end of the year or next year.
Wow.
But I think they're the two best guys in the division as well. Prograis is really good, and I think Josh Taylor's the fucking truth, man. I think he's awesome.
He is awesome, but the thing is, like, as well, I think it's great matchmaking. I think they've brought him up, steadily increased his level very well, and I think it's perfect kind of timing and everything. Vasquez in like 5, 6, 7 rounds or whatever it was, and handing the arse to Harry Davies. Like, I don't think Postol is a massive jump up from them guys. He's not like you're going up against Crawford or somebody. You're going up against a good world level fighter, but he's going to have to be. He's essentially already there to me. And, if he's going to win a title in the next year or two, which he should, he has to fight guys like Postol. So I think it's good matchmaking. And I hope it's on Channel 5 and we get to watch it for free.
I think it is on Channel 5, Tom.
It is on Channel 5, yeah.
So, good news. Paul,
you'll even be able to watch a gossip now.
I know.
You don't have the BT anymore. You'll be able to watch Channel 5 of me, and then you'll be able to see the good fights.
Yeah,
you won't have the restrictions.
I was telling the guys off air. I've had a bit of a mare, to be honest with you. So I've switched from Sky to Virgin in the last week or two, and when I was signing the deal with Virgin, we negotiated. Initially, they said, 50 million, but I said, send me the contract. And when the terms came through, they were able to offer me a great intro deal on the basis of having Sky and not having BT Sports. So I've been a Box Nation subscriber since day dot. I've always paid my Box Nation money. And I thought, I want BT Sports, but seeing as I've been offered this fantastic deal by Virgin, I'll can my Sky. I'll sign the deal with Virgin for Sky, and then I will keep my Box Nation subscription, which I have on a tablet, so I can watch it on the tablet rather than on a TV. Anyway, so I do that. I sign a 12-month deal at a great introductory price. And literally 3 or 4 days after that, I see the press conference saying that Tyson Fury will be fighting exclusively on BT Sports, which is a small disaster given the decisions that I've made. I mean, it's not like he's probably my favorite fighter. It's not like covering him would be one of the biggest things on the channel. So yeah, we'll have to take a view as to what we do there. But yeah, just sharing some boxing gossip disappointment for you all there. But anyway, I digress.
I expect that your missus had something to do with this. She wanted to have more gossip time, not having to watch Tyson Fury all the time and have these endless Tyson Fury videos on the channel. So she got on to Frank Warren and said, is there any chance you could ditch Box Nation? He delivered. Frank always delivers.
Good old Frank.
There you go. Tom's got it all worked out as ever, just like he did with Jerome Miller and Josh Taylor. Yeah.
And Guillermo Rigondeaux. Don't forget Guillermo.
And don't forget Guillermo. Paul, I appreciate there's probably not too much to add on Taylor, but anything to throw into him before we move it on?
I just think Taylor's fucking fantastic fighter. He's got everything for me. Switches, goes to the body really well. I think it's a good fight. I don't agree. I don't know if I agree with Tom that it's not much of a step up from O'Hara Davis, and Ramirez, and not Ramirez, Vasquez was kind of like a bit past it, wasn't he? I mean, it's a step up. This is a step up, no doubt about it. Postol's good from range. That's the thing. I don't think he's going to have enough to keep Josh Taylor off of him though. At this stage, I see Josh Taylor winning that. I think I think Josh Taylor's probably the best in that division already. To be completely honest, Prograde does look good. I think it's going to be them two. But great fight. I'm a big Josh Taylor fan. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah, he's improving, and it's not just the victories, but it's the manner of the victories that is really making a mark, I guess.
He's got underrated timing as well. The way he times a shot is a thing of beauty. It really is. That punch he dropped O'Hara with just before the stoppage. I mean, his timing is just so good. Footwork, great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that fight already. I really am.
Yes, yeah, it should be good. Okay, Paul. When we're speaking to you, let's move it on to the next topic. And I wanted to discuss. I guess before we really get into next week's boxing, I wanted to kind of discuss the open workouts today. So I guess link very closely. I've seen a real mixed bag of reactions, specifically to the David Haye workout. I mean, the general consensus with Bellew seemed to be, yes, he's still Tony Bellew, but he's looking in good nick and he's looking relatively sharp. With David Haye, now look, clearly David Haye wasn't putting everything into his punches. Clearly, he's not going to want to be at his most explosive for a public workout. But, whilst he looked a little bit more mobile, whilst he looked a little bit smarter, for me, he still didn't look completely right. What's your take on that, Paul? Did you check out the workouts today, and is there much to take away from them?
I mean, look, I saw the workouts, but I was only able to watch them on the iPad because I wasn't at home. I haven't seen any of the reactions to them or anything yet, so I don't, and I haven't been on Twitter, so I don't know what people have been saying. To be completely honest, I thought Tony Bellew looked pretty good. I thought he looked quite quick, quite snappy. I thought his feet looked good. David Haye, I don't like. I've been saying this for a while. I don't think David Haye. I think David Haye's done as an elite fighter. I think he may be coming back a little bit too early after that Achilles injury. It's so hard. It's so hard to sort of like. It's almost like it's not quite as bad as this, but it's almost like how I felt before the Eubank Groves fight, where I was sort of like back and forth between which was going to happen. Look, obviously, if David Haye is even at 80%. He wins this fight. I mean, what are we going straight into the to this fight, or are we just talking about the workouts?
Now we're there. Let's go into it, and I can loop back on myself later on.
I'm throwing your
You're all right, mate. You're
all off there. I do apologize. Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of I watched the first fight again yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yesterday, the day before, and I'm glad Bellew came in a bit lighter because he looks lighter. He certainly looks like he might be lighter because I had forgot. Like you say, knockouts cause amnesia or whatever. Is that Dwyer?
Yeah.
And it weren't exactly a knockout of such, was it? I mean, he's kind of like the thing that I kind of like. I had forgotten just how much Bellew gassed. Like Bellew, like I mean, David Haye was there. He was there to be just taken out. For 4 or 5 rounds of that fight. Was it the 6th he did his Achilles? And what was it, the 11th? Bellew managed to knock him through the ropes or whatever it was. I fucking like Haye won some of them rounds. Do you know that? Like there was at least one round, I think it was the 8th, that Haye won for me with like, you know, still not being able to throw properly. And so like I think Haye with, you know, 80% of what he used to have probably still wins. Personally, I just don't think he's got it anymore. I really don't. And I think Bellew is an improving fighter. I think he might do the business again. You know that. I think he might. Right up until watching it there the other day, I was sort of like, I was thinking, you know, that Haye might win. But the more I think about it, and certainly since seeing that today, he didn't look good to me today. And I know it's only a public workout. He just looked tentative. He looked like he was trying not to put too much weight on his back leg. That's where all your power comes from, is from that back leg. And that was the one he'd done in, wasn't it? It was, you know, and so I don't think he looks good. I was even doubtful that this fight would even happen because I just think Haye, his body is just giving up on him. His head wants to do great things, and his body's just saying, not anymore, mate, not anymore. Which is a shame, because the one thing I did take out of that, watching that again as well, was the heart of David Haye. Like, Jesus Christ, man, that man was not going to give in, even when he was knocked through the ropes. Like, he was still trying to get back in. Like, you know, and I've always been somebody that really don't like David Haye. I don't like him. I think he's an absolute wanker, but I actually had to have a little bit of respect for him in that last one for the heart he showed. Obviously, he's a fantastic fighter on his day, but I just think his day's gone.
Yeah. Paul, let me ask. Let's say David Haye's body doesn't break down, and I think that is the $1 million question in this fight. You know, obviously there is a huge risk of that, and you can't just write it off by if it doesn't happen. But for the purposes of this conversation, if David Haye doesn't have a complete physical collapse due to some sort of injury, can Bellew take 7 rounds of him? Can Bellew knock him unconscious? You know, I just find that hard to believe, although I could see David Haye falling apart again.
Probably not. But for me, it's not so much. It's not just whether his body completely falls apart again. It's kind of like, is he able to put enough weight on that foot to be able to be effective in the style that he fights in? Because this is a guy that his whole game is based on being explosive. It's being able to, you know, throw those big punches from range, jab from range, and box. And that back foot is a big part of whether you can do that, whether you can set yourself to be able to throw the shot or not. And so, like, I think if he's, you know, like, if he's, even if he doesn't completely physically disintegrate, but he's not sort of like fit enough to be able to fight in the way that he does, I don't think you can sort of like teach an old dog new tricks. I don't think he's going to sort of suddenly adopt different style. And you know, I just think Bellew might be able to just grind out a points win. I do.
Wow, is that the prediction, Paul? Is it?
I'll have to listen to. I'll make my prediction before the end of the show. I am kind of to and fro. I want to have a listen. I want to have a listen to what the other guys say as well. Like,
oh, he's on the fence. He's doing an Irish.
On the fence. I'm going to do an Irish. Yeah.
Let's bring Jay in next. Jay, obviously, sort of discussing the public workout, and then we kind of moved it into predictions for the fight. But give us your sort of breakdown ahead of this one.
So I watched the.
Jay, can I say something for a second?
Just shut up.
Can I just say something for a second? How am I getting How am I getting tired with fucking sitting on the fence? If there's a more opinionated bastard in the world than me, put them on to me. I've always put my neck on the line. That's a load of horseshit. Yeah, I picked Lomachenko.
You
Go
picked
back.
Lomachenko, but Rigondeaux could really go back. But he could win by points, but he could retire. But Lomachenko could not. Come on.
Outrage.
Sitting on the fence, mate. Simple.
Keep going, Taka.
Taka, is that all you've got? Is seriously.
Irish did make predictions in that thing. He just made about 5 or 6 of them. That's all it was. He made very definite predictions, but it was just about 5 or 6 of them. That was all.
McGregor and Takam, what a dance partner.
Takam, are you seriously? Okay. Anyway, so I watched the workouts today. David Haye is slim. He is coming in light. This is not a heavyweight fight in the slightest. This is a cruiserweight fight. He's obviously learned from that. If we notice when he was on his comeback, he bulked up heavily, obviously to try and bridge that gap between the super heavyweights and a light and a cruiserweight. You know, he tried to get into that upper bracket of size wise. I listened to Johnny Nelson today, and he said, I watched David Haye, and he's not the David Haye he was because David Haye was always on his toes. David Haye has never been on his toes. If you watch him fight, he always looks quite flat-footed. You know, if you go back to, I don't know, Carl Thompson, 10 fights in, he's still quite flat-footed. He's never one to bounce on his toes, to bounce in and out. He was always quite flat-footed and very explosive at the same time. I think he's learned from the first fight. Obviously, he knows that size just doesn't work for him. You know, and this is kind of a new thing for David Haye because before that, when it was Bellew, Klitschko, he was never really that bulky, that big, but you could see a significant size difference when he made his comeback. I think obviously he's learned from that, and he obviously puts a heavy strain on his body, on his legs, on his Achilles. He also said, Johnny Nelson, that Tony Bellew is one of the best boxing technicians in the game today, or something of that. He was basically saying he's a great skilled boxer. Tony Bellew is the most inaccurate puncher there is out there. I mean, he was missing punches when it comes to the last fight, and has done for a lot of his career. David Haye in that last fight was wild. He admitted it himself. He was wild, throwing big hooks. But I think that was obviously because he knew he was carrying this injury, and he knew he didn't have long to go within that fight. So he had to get rid of him quickly. But again, every time, and the same with you, Gossip, I know that we always bet against Tony Bellew, and he seems to pull it out the bag. And we always go back to say, and we've said it before in past podcasts, that a fit David Haye, a prime David Haye, beats Tony Bellew. And it is that simple. He does. It's just this question mark, and the problem is with the issues that David Haye's had. He's giving us these questions, and he's making us think. Is he fit? Is he ready to go? Can he withstand those 12 rounds? And I'll say it again: if he can, he wins. He wins easily, but because I don't see it in Tony Bellew, even in his victories, I still don't see something spectacular from him. He just seems to get through and make it work. So maybe that's the genius in him, that he has something special where he can just get through fights and win them. And so it's a real tough call, but he's definitely lighter, David Haye. I think Tony Bellew even said that he was lighter as well, because he admitted that he gassed when it comes to about the 7th round and really should have put David Haye away. I think there was a lot of nervous tension in that fight, a lot of build-up, a lot of grudge, a lot of dismay between the two of them, and a lot of almost hatred between the two of them. So I think a lot of that energy came out very quickly within the first couple of rounds. So it's going to be really interesting to see it. It could be another freak show, or it could be a dominant David Haye performance. It's really difficult to tell, and it's so difficult because we don't know what sort of condition David Haye's really in, because we're forever hearing boxers saying it's the greatest camp they've ever had. They're in the best shape of their life, blah, blah, blah. We don't really know. But I saw a picture of Joe Joyce standing next to David Haye, and the size difference is massively comparable. It's like David Haye looks like a cruiserweight now. He looks like a cruiserweight, whereas obviously Joe Joyce looks like a big heavyweight. So there's obviously a method in his madness that coming into this fight. Now, whether that's going to work out to plan, we don't really know.
Do you have a prediction, Jay?
No, I'm going to go with David Haye to win this. I think David Haye wins and wins well. We have to make a prediction. I can't, I'm not going to cover my ass and say, well, only if David Haye comes in fit. I'm going off the fact that David Haye is fit, Tony Bellew is fit. If David Haye is fit, he beats Tony Bellew convincingly. So there you go.
So presumably, if you think David Haye is going to win the fight, you're thinking by stoppage, because I guess the logic is that if David Haye is still David Haye, Tony Bellew can't do 12.
If I was betting, it would be by stoppage. David Haye, again, I can only what David Haye said. He said that he's looking to take it late and win by knockout, and that's I could see that. I could see David Haye taking the 7th, 8th, 9th round, and then really putting the pressure on and letting those bombs go. But again, it just depends on what David Haye we see. If David Haye's not in shape and he's injured, then he's not going to win. But I'm going off, as I said, that David Haye is fit and he's ready to go. I think he looks slimmer. I think it will make him sharper. I think it will make him quicker. I think he'll use his brain a little bit more that he didn't last time. But again, going back to what I said, I don't think he could use his brain. He couldn't really box because he knew he had an injury, and he just thought, I've got to get him out early and I've got to get him out quick. I think David Haye still believes then that if he connects with Tony Bellew's going, he's going to get done. So, he just thought, I've got 3-4 rounds. I'm going to have to get him out of here fast. So he goes for that big haymaker and hopes he connects, because he knows he'll get rid of him, and he would get rid of him if he connected clean. So I think David Haye beats Tony Bellew, and that's my logic. And yeah, he wins.
Interesting. So, relatively close calls. For those of you who've seen my video that's gone up on the channel, I did a pre-fight sort of prediction and breakdown of the fight, and my prediction was David Haye by devastating knockout. Once again, jumping 2 feet first, straight back into the repeat of an incorrect prediction that I made first time round. Tony Bellew has been the fighter I have misjudged the most since starting this channel. I mean, there's been other fighters I've misjudged, but Bellew is the one I've misjudged the most. Haye, maybe I am guilty of overrating him. Maybe I am just a sentimental Haye fan who doesn't realise when enough is enough. But I'm ignoring the first fight. I don't think the first fight is a worthwhile point of evidence in terms of predicting the second fight. And I think David Haye should stop Tony Bellew.
Well, what I say is he made Tony Bellew look very, very good in that fight because of those. If he's launching these huge hooks from a mile away, any decent boxer is going to see these punches coming and slip these punches. But he's still got caught a few times. Now, if David Haye is more technical and more clinical and more patient and has the fitness, he wins. He has to win. I don't see how Bellew can withstand that.
Although when I look at the construction of Haye's punches, I wonder if that is remnants of all the injuries. Because when I think of a peak David Haye is someone who had good punch construction, and he's someone who could throw straight punches. I look at him in that fight. The punches are looping. They're coming from too much of a distance. And I'm wondering, is it the Achilles because he's putting struggling to put the weight right through his legs? Is it the bicep? Is it the shoulder? What is it? Maybe it's a combination of all of them. But yeah, the construction of his punches isn't what it was.
But I think it was the Achilles. I think he knew that. You know, that whole thing of going abroad and having to see a specialist. He knew he was going into that fight with an injury. You could tell like the way he was dragging a little bit. You know, if you watch that fight again. And so I just honestly believe that he's got to go in there for the knockout, and he's got to do it quick, because he knows he ain't going to go past 3 or 4 rounds until his injury gives up. And so that was so not David Haye, what you saw. And never in his previous fights have you seen him. Or even when he's come back against Mark Demori, you know, it's a big difference, but still had that same clinical, technical attitude that he has, where the way he goes about his work. He stalks a fighter, he looks for the openings, he'll let a couple of combinations go. He's an intelligent fighter, and what you saw was not an intelligent fighter. And I just strongly believe it's because he knew he only had a short amount of time to get Tony Bellew out of there. Otherwise, he was going to be in big trouble, and he was, and it showed. So a fit David Haye wins.
But Jay, did you see the public workouts today? Did you see anything, or did any of you see anything from David Haye and the way David Haye was moving to suggest he's completely past that injury? Because let's not forget that injury required surgery. How long ago was that? When did that fight happen?
I think it was about 10 months ago.
Is it 10 months ago?
No, but if you watch him, people for some reason people think David Haye's this guy that dances and he's on his toes and he's back and he's forth and he's in. He doesn't do that. He's never done that.
No.
He almost plods forward to a certain extent, plods forward and waits. And just waits for that gap, and then boom, goes. And I didn't look at him today and think, no, he's still carrying that injury. I didn't think that. But although it's very difficult in an open workout, they're not really pushing themselves, are they? They're not really, you know, they're not going to overdo it regardless of injury or not.
So the first fight was in March last year. So it was actually 14 months ago, so longer than I thought. My take is that Haye didn't look specifically injured, but I do think he looks like a guy who has had a long career and numerous problems. You know, you hear about these problems and you can kind of see them in the way his style has evolved and potentially worsened. With regards to Jay's point, you know, I've got to admit, ever so slightly disagree. You know, if I look back to the Klitschko fight, and it's funny looking back at that fight because obviously at the time that was considered one of David Haye's disasters. Yeah, but now with the benefit of some hindsight, it's actually possible to say that that was one of his better performances in a sort of bizarre roundabout kind of way. But if you look at that, I was impressed by David Haye in terms of his back foot movement. You know, he was able to sit on the back foot, to use the size of the ring, to be evasive. And I guess that's what people are referring to when they're talking about him up on his toes.
Yeah, I think, but do you think that's a matter of weight, you know, of size? You know,
I think a big factor is youth.
I think because when you watched him on his comeback, and again I go back to it, and it's not a great opponent, but his upper body movement is a lot slower. There's a lot more going into the punches, and I think maybe with that less of upper body bulk, it allows him to move a little bit better and to move a shot and slip a shot a little bit better and to find the angles like he used to do. But I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that his back foot game was better, but he's never been one, you know, that will stand on his toes. Do you know what I mean? And almost bouncing. You know, he will kind of stalk forward and stalk back. So, yeah, obviously he's not going to be the same fighter he was because, you know, when was the Klitschko fight? What, 6 years ago?
Yeah, probably more like 6, 7, I'd guess.
7 years ago. So, yeah, obviously he's not going to be the same fighter, but I think he still has the ability to mix at a really, you know, at a top level if he's fully fit. And I suppose, you know, I guess Tony Bellew was seen as a top level fighter. He's a WBC cruiserweight champion. So, you know, but I think he's still good enough to beat Tony Bellew.
Yeah. Yeah, I concur there. Let's bring in Tom. Tom, I know you've been one of this fight's detractors, but now it's getting close. What's your thoughts and how are you predicting?
Well, I've hardly watched a thing for it. It's not like a kind of a hipster thing. I just have very little interest in watching like a kind of not a great cruiserweight world champion against an injured ex-heavyweight world champion on pay-per-view, man. It's like when you hear that Danny Green was fighting. What was your man? Danny Green was fighting in Australia on pay-per-view. Anthony Mundine. It's that type of a fight. It's like I'll probably watch it, but I don't really care for it at all. But I think that my prediction for this one is, well, it's weird. I was looking at the odds. Tony Bellew is 3-1 for KO by KO. Right. I wonder how much of that is David Haye's leg falling off, and he's 5-1 by decision.
Yeah, it's 90% Haye's leg falling off, but that's the biggest. I mean, that is a very plausible risk.
I know, but it just shows you what a poor fight it is. Like, pay-per-view should be for like it's ideas for like top quality fights, and this is basically about how injured is a guy. That's all the fight's about. Because David Haye's an infinitely better fighter.
I kind of agreed with you first time round. First time round, I thought it was a one-round job, but whether you like it or not, the first fight did develop into an entertaining and somewhat intriguing matchup, despite the negatives. But do you still see it as one-sided, Tom?
Look, I think my prediction this is it's not so much a prediction, but it's probably not the most likely outcome. But I kind of predict David Haye to win on points, because I kind of feel like the last thing he wants to do is to really go all out for a KO and pull something, and then his career is over. I think that he knows that he's a much superior boxer to David or to Tony Bellew, and I feel like if the knockout comes, he'll take it. You get 11-2 on David Haye by points. I think that's very good value. I think it's like, for me, it's like 30% chance David Haye's legs falls apart, and then when it comes to it, I think a points win is equally as likely as a KO. Because I don't see David Haye willing to go for broke at any point.
I've got to disagree with you, Tom. And I'm going to disagree with you strongly for two reasons. Number one, David Haye can't win this fight on points. If David Haye wins this fight on points, his career is over. The reason he came back to the sport is over. The big money fights are gone, So firstly, a win on points for David Haye is a loss. The second thing is, if David Haye is, do you think he can get the fights he wants after a points win against Tony Bellew?
Look, Eddie Hearn can spin shit into gold.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
He can. He can. I mean, he's a good salesperson.
But Eddie
So
Hearn's not
even
his
if there's a
promoter,
bad result
what are you
like
talking
this,
about? Eddie Hearn's not his promoter.
What?
Eddie Hearn's not David Haye's promoter.
Yeah, but he's Joshua's promoter. We all know that's the fight that's trying to be made, that we're talking about coming up.
Yeah, that's the fight we're talking about. But he can't 7-5 Tony Bellew or 8-4 Tony Bellew or even 9-3 Tony Bellew and then get stuck in with.
Of course he can. Of course he can. Like, I think, genuinely, I think he can. If you look at like the casual, like my mate, who's a casual boxing fan, he goes to some fights with me and he does watch a good bit of boxing, but he is a casual fan. Like, and he was well up for the last David Haye fight and the Bellew fight, and I was like, oh, what are you talking about?
I think Irish.
Sorry,
I'd have to agree with you there.
I think
they made Haye Harrison pay-per-view.
Yeah, and look at what Eddie Hearn managed to do. He spun a 5-round fight against GG where he got his brain, his eye socket smashed, and he got absolutely destroyed. He ended his career. And look at what happened in the press conferences for the Errol Spence fight. They had Eddie Hearn had got him saying, "Oh, I showed the blueprint and how to be GGG." Like, the man is fucking. You got to give it to Eddie Hearn. He's able to fucking spin stuff. He should be working in politics. because he's a very good salesman. And I think it's not devastating if imagine it's a close fight or David Haye wins it easy. It's you know, it'd be so easy for him to sell it. So I genuinely don't think it's a loss if he wins by points.
Well, I disagree. I think if David Haye doesn't look devastating, his career is over in this fight. I actually have heard that the early indicators are that there is a lot lower interest in this fight than was anticipated. And I think a lot of that is because first time round, David Haye was the draw. And David Haye was still a mega draw in boxing. And unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately, depending on your perspective, I think David Haye is no longer the draw. And I think if he labours to a close points victory, I do think his career is as good as over. The second thing I'll say is if David Haye is able to fight for 12 rounds, if his leg doesn't fall off, you know, as we've been sort of suggesting, I just don't think Tony Bellew can do 12 rounds with him, you know, because maybe I'm naive that I keep writing Bellew off, but I just believe Bellew's frailties are too extensive to do 12 rounds with a David Haye whose leg doesn't fall off.
Yeah, I agree. I think if David Haye's fit, if he's actually fit, I don't see any way that Tony Bellew can go the distance with him. I really don't.
I'll tell you how we can go the distance. Sorry, is because not only does have David Haye run the risk of his leg falling off, he's also run the risk that his arm falls off. You know, he tore a bicep or whatever. That's a major injury. So it's like it's not just one thing that's a problem. It's two.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Bellew stopping him because I could see David Haye's body collapsing, but I can't see David Haye being able to fight for 12 rounds with Tony Bellew and Bellew surviving that.
Yeah, no, I just disagree. I just think that there's a good chance that David Haye won't be able to be explosive from his feet or explosive from his arm. So he won't be able to actually generate the elite power he used to have to knock him out. And if he's tentative about both of those aspects, he's definitely a better boxer and he's a bigger man, naturally heavier hitter, even if he's not going for explosive power. So I just think that it'll be a points win. I think you get 11-2 on David Haye by points. I just think that's an amazing prize.
I'm going to stick my neck out. I'm going to stick my neck out here, right? I don't think David Haye's the same. I don't think he's fully fit. I don't think he's going to be able to sort of like get back to anything like we've seen him before. And I'm picking Bellew to stop him again. I think he's going to disintegrate again, and I think Bellew will stop him. I think
you heard it here first.
There you go.
What makes you think he's not fully fit, Paul?
Just his body language, seeing him in the public workouts today. It hasn't been really long since. I mean, it was a little bit longer than I thought it was. I didn't think it was 14 months, but you know, I just see Haye as a guy that he's had so many injuries. Look, can we catalogue fucking David Haye's injuries? I mean, is there a fucking injury that he hasn't had?
Yeah, head, shoulders, knees and toes. Yeah, he's
yeah, and how old is he now? 36, 38? What is it?
37.
37, yeah. I mean, a guy that fights the way he does, that's had the injuries he's had, and you add to that just the way he looks. I just have had a very strong feeling for a while that Haye is kind of like pretty much done. That's how I feel about it.
Well, we got a split panel. Let me just reiterate: we got myself, Haye KO. We got Paul Bellew KO. I think we've got Jay Haye KO.
Yeah.
And I think we've got Tom Haye points.
Wow.
There we go. There we go. Interesting. Well, that's an interesting one. Now,
what do you call it? I think one thing I'd say though is that when it comes to these kind of weird fights like this, Paul has been good at judging like which fighter is You know, like say the Frankie Gavin one. There was a couple other ones Paul called right on these injury ones. So maybe we should be listening to Paul.
Maybe.
Yeah. He got the McGregor one there wrong, no, Tom.
Can I just point out once again, I was the only person that picked Floyd by fucking stoppage. Go back and look at the footage. Shut the fuck up, the lot of yous.
You weren't the only one that picked Floyd by stoppage. No,
yes,
way.
I was. The rest
none of us would have said that Floyd would go to points with McGregor. No way. You also said McGregor took rounds off Floyd. When did that happen?
McGregor did take rounds off. Are you fucking serious?
Jesus.
Now, whether you like the main event or not, this is actually, in my opinion, a very interesting undercard. Leroy Thomas versus Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce is someone I'm extremely keen to see. I like the Martin J. Ward versus Tennyson fight. I think that's the fight where I see a little bit of upset potential. And I also really, really like Ryder Cox. You know, that's the one I'm most buzzing for. Just a brief word on the undercard, gents. Anyone looking forward to any of those fights or want to say anything on any of them matchups in particular?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the undercard fights. I don't know. I don't think I've seen Tennyson fight, to be completely honest. Have anything to say on Tennyson, Tom?
Sorry, Paul?
Tennyson.
Yeah.
Martin J. Ward's fighting. I don't think I've seen him fight. Is he any good?
He's known as a puncher. And he's had one or two losses. I saw him lose by stoppage to Liam Walsh, but he subsequently stepped up into the division. I don't think Tennyson is a world beater. But Martin J. Ward's just one of these characters where I seem to have seen the majority of his fights. I think just by coincidence, I've seen him box live a few times, etc. And I do view him as potentially frail. I think it's quite interesting that he's kind of been kept in and around this level, and he's kind of never really had the push that you would expect given the stable he's operating with. I was actually at his fight against Ronnie Clark. This is the Ronnie Clark who recently beat Zelfa Barrett. So maybe in hindsight that wasn't a bad performance. But I remember Ronnie Clark coming on strong in that fight. I remember Ronnie Clark hurting Martin Ward. And I just wonder if he's a little bit vulnerable. You know, he dropped a draw to Maxie Hughes back in the day. I just wonder whether someone like Tennyson, who's got that sort of slight heavy-handedness about him, could potentially cause him one or two problems around the whiskers.
I think I've seen Tennyson before a few times, and I don't think he's up to much at all. Like I think it's Martin Ward on points for me. I think Ward is a decent boxer, and I think Tennyson is not a good boxer. You get 5-4 Ward in points, and I think Ward's not going to knock him out. He's a big guy. Well, Tennyson has been knocked out once, but I think Ward's not a power puncher. I think I have to have Martin Ward in points all night long.
I think Joe Joyce will stop Leroy Thomas. I think Joe Joyce wins that fight quite easily. And what's the other one?
The other one's probably the fight of the night. John Ryder versus
Cox.
Irish Tom's boy Jamie Cox.
I think Jamie Cox is. I think Jamie Cox is going to win that fight. I think Jamie Cox is a much better fighter than John Ryder. I really do. I mean, you look at the shit he was giving fucking George Groves, man. Cox. I mean, Cox at certain points in that fight, and until he was stopped, he really put it on Groves. I think he's a better fighter than Ryder. I think he wins that fight. Don't know what anybody else thinks.
I'm going with Ryder, but I do see it as an extremely competitive fight. They're both small. Neither of them carry a huge amount of power. They're both possible to hit, but I think Ryder has generally been mixing it at a higher level. I think Ryder has a lot better wins under his belt, and I think Ryder has a lot less technical flaws than Jamie Cox. So, yeah, unless Jamie Cox can live up to that hype that he so far failed to live up to, on balance, I think Ryder's the most likely winner.
Gossip. If these are two matchroom fighters, aren't they?
I'm not 100% sure John Ryder is a matchroom fighter. He certainly has been in the past, but I'm not sure he is right now.
Yeah, I was just wondering how you made your decision when two matchroom fighters were fighting each other. I was wondering what criteria you would use.
Can I just say, I just picked Haye to devastate Bellew.
Yeah, you never learn, Gossip. You never learn. You've got certain sweethearts, and you must say you're loyal, though. You are loyal.
Do you know what? That is actually true. I am very bad for not only backing the wrong horse, but then backing it in the next 10 races. That is a glaring flaw of mine. I've had to diagnose. Yeah. So, fair comment.
I think Gossip had a clause in his contract with Eddie Hearn that he can pick certain fighters to beat matchroom fighters. Yeah. He gets a certain amount of passes like with certain fighters, and that's it. Like,
yeah, if Clev comes back and he's not with matchroom, he's allowed to choose cleverly.
Are you watching? Are you big on Jamie Cox in this one, Tom?
I think that's. I've been thinking about this fight, and I honestly, I don't know what to think here. It's a tough fight. I think it's a good styles matchup. The only thing is, John Ryder is so small for that weight, even though he's a good boxer. Like that win he had against Nielsen or whatever he was. Nielsen is no good, man. Nielsen went life and death with Arthur Abraham there. You know, Arthur Abraham is shot at this stage. But I think Jamie Cox might be just too fresh. But I think that'll be a good fight. I think that'll be a good fight. I wouldn't be surprised if Jamie Cox stops him late, though. But I think that's a good fight. Another the card on that, the card is actually quite good. The undercards is probably one of the best undercards that Eddie's actually put on in on one of these pay-per-views for quite a while.
To be fair, it is a good undercard. Yeah, it is, and I'm looking forward to it. I don't know much about the Paul Butler fight, but I understand he's in. I think it's potentially a world title fight, is it?
It is. I think he's in deep too. I think he's underdog. Is he? Is Rodriguez 1-3 favorite?
I'll have a look on Odds Checker.
Yeah, Paul Butler is 3-1. You can get nearly 4-1. You get 11-4 on Paul Butler.
That's interesting. Do we know much about his opponent, Emmanuel Rodriguez?
No, never heard of him. Never heard of him.
I'll just quickly box track him. So Emmanuel Rodriguez, 17 fights, 12 wins. Sorry, 17 wins, 12 by KO, no losses. The 13th best bantamweight according to BoxRec. The opponents he's been beating, he beat 16-5. To be honest, I don't recognise any of them. I'm very surprised, Tom. It's not too common that you see a fighter with his profile starting a fight odds on against a UK fighter fighting in the UK.
Absolutely, and I'm looking at his record here, and like I don't recognise any of the guys that he's fought. Like I'm not an expert on the bantamweight division, but I don't recognize anybody. So, and he doesn't seem to have, like, none of them seem to be. He's on one over 24-2 guy, but like that's about it, We
needed Jet here tonight, didn't we? We needed Jet.
I think Jet would just pull a Kirill relic and said he saw him on YouTube or something.
Yeah,
but never, just made up another one of Jet. Maybe Jet's got some bots watching these fights for him.
This is interesting. One or two people in the chat saying Rodriguez is next level. Delboy, who's I'm a huge fan of his channel, says Rodriguez is a gem. Mikey says Rodriguez is going to beat him to a pulp. Someone else says, let's not forget Butler's really a super flyweight. So interesting. I'm like, you got me interested for this Rodriguez Butler fight now as well. So that's another you know, decent. You can't diagnose a fight as a good fight just because I've box tracked it. But yeah, I mean,
it's a good card. It is a good card.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, let's just quick congrats to Eddie Hearn and thank you for doing what you're doing. I guess.
And Tom also thanks you for the envelopes. He's let me know that they've been a real help, especially with the move and everything. So,
yes.
Can I ask a question? Does anyone got any idea about what this big announcement Eddie Hearn's got in the next couple of weeks that he keeps talking about?
Well, I assume it's almost certainly US TV dates. And
I heard something that he's going to be putting on a show on American TV, a show every month in the year.
Every month? Yeah, I mean, that doesn't, for me, that sounds realistic, you know. 12 US bills a year. Obviously, there's been a lot of rumours around who he's going to sign. You know, lots of people saying Charlos, lots of people saying Spence.
He's going to have more money than Al Heyman before you know it.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see. I guess there's no point speculating on it too much because we'll find out about it soon enough. Jay, have you got any other comments on the undercard at all? Huh?
John Ryder, Jamie Cox. I'm with you. I think Ryder beats him. I think Ryder's really improved over the last few fights. He's looked a lot better, better at the weight. I'm not with the hype of Jamie Cox. I think he's limited in a big way, and I think John Ryder has the better head when it comes to this fight. So I think he wins. I think Joe Joyce does a job on Leroy Thomas. There's nothing I've seen from Leroy Thomas that makes me think that he's a world beater at all. I think he beats him convincingly. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Really
good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, it's be good. Let's just quickly. I appreciate it's not a fight that is really exciting any of us, but anyone on the panel got anything to add really when it comes to Golovkin, Varnes, Martirosyan? I mean, I personally will watch the fight. Be interested to see how Golovkin looks, and I'll watch it the next day. I won't wait up for it. But you know, it's hard to see it being anything else than a run out for Golovkin, I suspect, guys.
I'm looking forward to. I always look forward to watching Golovkin. You know, he's a great fighter, and he has been a great fighter. And he'll be missed eventually when he leaves us, when he leaves the boxing. But yeah, I'll always. It's not his fault that he's in the fight he's in. You know, it's not necessarily the fight that he wanted. I guess he was pretty much, you know, his hands were tied really because of the issues with Canelo. You know, Jacobs wouldn't have been available. Charlo wouldn't have been available. You know, the fights weren't really there for him, and he had to fight. So, you know, I don't, you know, you can't really blame him. But I still like to watch him work, and still like to watch whoever he's fighting. You know, he's just one of those fighters who will always bring excitement and will always bring the drama show, as he says.
Yeah. For me, Martirosyan, too long out of the ring to turn up for a short notice fight for me. Let alone the step up in class. On his day, clearly a very good fighter, clearly a top 10 contender at light middleweight if he was active, if he was fit. But, you know, it's just one of those where there's too many factors against him, coming in too late, stepping up in weight classes, fighting one of the top fighters in the world, you know, let alone that bit. And we can expect Golovkin to be nearly fully wound up as well, just on the basis that he was obviously in training to take on Canelo. So, yeah, hard to see it being competitive, hard to see it going on for too long. But let's see. Let's see.
The show must go on, Tom. The show must go on.
It must do. Right, okay. Let's move it on from there. Paul, are you keen? Are you keen to do this while the Joshua thing, mate?
Let me go make a cup of tea. I just I can't. Time comes on because I'm going to go and put the kettle on.
Yeah. The only thing I'm going to ask, respectfully request before we begin this, is to keep it decent to an extent. But I guess let's unopen the box. So Wilder Joshua, the whole world's talking about it. Is it an offer? Isn't it an offer? Is one of them ducking the other one? Are they both ducking it? Are neither of them ducking it? You know, it's one of those where everyone's got an opinion on it. My opinion was that the initial $12.5 million offer from Hearn to Wilder was somewhat farcical. My further opinion is that the counteroffer from Deontay Wilder and the accompanying behaviour from his team was similarly farcical. And I just get the whole impression that the boxing gods and the powers that be in the sport, if you like, are not inclined to make this fight next time out. You know, I believe it's just building the hype at this stage. But I know there are strong opinions on every side of the argument. Paul, what's your take?
I mean, I largely agree with you. I don't think either guy is ducking each other, like as in scared of the other. I think probably both teams would like to build it into a bigger fight and would like to maximize on the investment that they've put into the fighter at this point. I guess keep the hype train running for a little bit longer. I do think that the 12.5 million offer was low. Equally, I just, look, if you look at the timeline of this £50 million offer, Lou DiBella comes out in an interview and says, negotiations are not made via emails. Yeah. Then an offer is made by Deontay, not by Lou DiBella or Shelley Finkel or Al Heyman, but from Deontay Wilder himself via email. And this is the offer that they expect us to believe is a legit offer. Yeah. Now, look, AJ said he'd take 50 million. He didn't say, I'll take 50 million regardless of the details. I don't want to know the details. As long as it's 50 million, that's all. He said, I'll take 50 million. Yeah. To expect somebody to agree to that, to say yes, I believe, and you know, this is flawed thinking, but then again, Wilder, all you got to do is read a couple of Wilder's tweets and you can see that he's not the brightest crayon in the box, let's just say. I think he believes getting AJ to actually say yes, and it becomes then a verbal agreement, which apparently under US law is kind of like, can be enforced, can be, and whatnot. I think he believed that was his way of getting a bit of a foothold in the negotiations or whatever. Look, how they can say you've got to accept this £50 million offer, there's a 24-hour deadline, and in that 24 hours, we're going to cancel 2 meetings. We completely refuse to meet you. We completely refuse to answer any questions whatsoever. How anybody can hear all of that and think, yeah, man, team AJ are ducking. Like, why won't they just accept it? It's just fucking beyond me. It's absolutely ridiculous. I think it's a way to build hype. It may have been a way to get Eddie Hearn to increase his offer. He's said in a couple of interviews recently that he believes that's probably the tactic, and it's probably worked because they are going to send a revised offer now. I don't believe the fight will happen next now. And you know, it's a bit farcical, to be completely honest. At this point, I think it is a little bit farcical. I don't see how anybody can make the argument that they should have just accepted this without knowing anything to do with the terms whatsoever. And the other thing I wanted to say on it as well is people are saying, well, it's Al Heyman, you should just trust him, and it's Shelley Finkel. Look, these people are people that have made big fights before. I agree, they are. But 2 points, they're also people that have made big fights with guys that have proven track records in the pay-per-view market in the US. Wilder or AJ, and neither of them fit that criteria. Neither of them are big names in the US. Neither of them are pay-per-view fighters in the US at this point. And I think that makes it a little bit different to the fact that he's made big fights with, you know, Floyd and whatnot. The other thing is, let's not forget, Shelley Finkel was the guy that what's his name? Shannon Briggs apparently took Shelley Finkel to court, saying he never paid him for the Klitschko fight. So it's not like, you know, I'm not saying, you know, he's a questionable character, but it's not like there's never been any kind of like controversy surrounding Shelley Finkel and stuff like that. And so the idea that they should just, you know, accept it and blah, 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 without seeing any kind of contract or seeing any kind of details as whatever is a bit naive. It's a little bit naive at best. At worst, I would say that if you were to take that position, then you kind of like, you're either kind of like biased or you're just letting the hate for one side or the other cloud your judgment a little bit. That's my view.
Good stuff. I for what it's worth, I don't disagree with your assessment, Paul. Would either of the other two gents on the panel care to
just let him out the cage, let him go? I don't even want to say anything because I'll just lose my rag.
To add anything to this topic of conversation?
I would like to add something.
I suspected.
It's a surprise, man. Fucking hell.
Okay, let's see if I can actually talk now for a while without Paul jumping in. Now, I must say, like, since we've been on doing this podcast, like, two of my lowest, like, the worst week I've ever had from boxing for annoying me was Kell Brook against GGG. And I'm thinking this last week must be close second. Actually, it's probably joint first. It may even be first. Like, I just can't hack all this business shit. But the thing that really annoys me is that all this stuff that people happen to be, it's amazing how all the people on the Atlantic side, the US side of the Atlantic, all think one way, and how all the channels on the UK side think another way. It's just startling to me. Like, one thing we do know is that Eddie Hearn is a liar, and he has lied about the negotiations in this fight so before. We know that for a fact. Secondly, Eddie Hearn said that this was not, he said it was a £100 million fight, and then he said it wasn't. It was only a £40 million fight when they put the offer in. Right. So Eddie Hearn did say he thinks it's only a £40 million fight. In that context, Anthony Joshua said, well, we ran the numbers. It's not a big fight. So if you want to pay me $50 million or so, then I'll take it. Subsequently, they offer a $100 million fight. $100 million. Basically, they're booking that fight as $100 million. Imagine I'm AJ, right? And I think that fight is only...
Sorry, can I just stop you there? Why are
No.
It's 100 million. Where did you get the 100 million from?
What do you mean?
Why are they booking it as a $100 million fight? How do you know Wilder's getting 50 million?
I'm not saying that he's getting 50 million. I'm saying that they think it's a $100 million fight.
Think.
Right?
Think. Okay.
Yeah, okay, but who cares? Imagine you're Joshua, right? And you think it's not a $100 million fight, and they're guaranteeing you 50 million. If Eddie Hearn thinks it's a £40 million fight, which is a $50 million fight, they've essentially said, we agreed to pay Joshua 100%. Right?
Correct.
Okay. Now let's assume that that's correct. Let's assume that it is a £40 million fight and Eddie Hearn's not lying. That means Joshua would be an idiot not to take it. Would that not be correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So what this offer has done, two things. It smoked out the bullshit offer from Eddie Hearn, which was saying it was a good offer. Secondarily, it has smoked out the fact that this fight is bigger in America than it is in the UK. After all you guys laughing at it for ages, me saying that's been pointed out. Thirdly, this is to try and make out the fact that somebody like Al Heyman, that Eddie Hearn is worried that he can't get the money together for this boxing show, is absurd. Let's put it plainly. Al Heyman, one of his fights has grossed double of all of Eddie Hearn's pay-per-views put together.
Serious question,
okay?
though. Serious question though. One question, sorry. I don't think he's saying that it's that Al Heyman hasn't got $50 million. I don't think that's the issue, is it? The issue seems to be because he's publicly said that he would willingly sit down and talk to them if they're offering $50 million.
Okay.
The issue is coming aftermath.
Correct.
And the fact that none of the details are known about.
Hey, look, Paul, I haven't finished talking. I let you go for ages.
Oh,
right. So for example, right, let's say you put an offer in. Now, I heard so many business people talk about how all these wannabe fans talking about how business works, and they haven't got a fucking clue how these things work, right? If you're doing a large business deal transaction with somebody, there's a certain amount of it that goes on that's basically coming to agreement on terms before ever there's a contract signed. Okay. So, for example, you want to do the fight, just like Shelley Finkel said they did with the Klitschko fight with Eddie Hearn, for example, that you talk about what splits you want, blah, 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 blah. And then if they agree to the criteria, the general gist of these, you put your documents together and then things get finalized. For Eddie Hearn to say he has to see $50 million in an escrowed account, like before the document comes over, before they can even discuss whether those splits or whatever are reasonable, is just beyond stupidity. It's beyond stupidity. The fact that you can't even talk about a contract. I've worked in like advertising agencies selling advertising to big blue chip fucking partners, and you'd be putting together 6-figure contracts every day of the week, and you're putting them together. And do you think that before you even talk about negotiating what they're actually interested in and what you both agree with, that you have to have contracts before that? It is bullshit. And wait, just let me finish. And for someone to say that, for example, you want you'd have to have the money. Imagine like you were doing business with Procter and Gamble, and you'd have to say, oh well, we want to have the money fucking escrowed in account to make sure before we even start talking that it exists. It's all bullshit. Now, whether Wilder and these guys are doing it through the media for hype, I think definitely yes. Did I think the 24-hour deadline was real? No, just like I think that Joshua's and AJ's initial contract offerings were real. But to put this idea out there that it's a fake offer, look, that's the biggest guarantee in heavyweight history. You got a man who has probably done literally 10 times the amount of revenue than Eddie Hearn has ever done in his life. You got Showtime backing it, which is 10 times the size of Sky. To put this like it's just one, like the Wilder side are just making this up, it's just the biggest load of Billy Britt bullshit I've ever heard in my life. Sure, both sides are fucking doing things in the media or whatever, but to make it out like Wilder is ducking and it's a bullshit one, is we know exactly which is the bullshit offer, which is Eddie Hearn, because he's going to come back with a new one. And also, the Billy Britt mentality doesn't want this fight to be in America. They don't want to admit that fucking America is where the big money is. And everybody's come over here, Britain is the biggest boxing place. No, it's not. It doesn't. Wilder against Joshua will be at least $100 million fight in America. And if it was over here, it'll be a 40, 50, $60 million fight. That's just the reality of it. And all the rest of it is just somebody like Hatman who calls himself objective. To anybody you hear such bullshit, who in the world is objective? You can't be objective by definition. It's just painful to listen to all these channels. Painful.
Let's please don't use this as a forum to call out other channels, mate. Like, you have to do it on your own channel if you're going to do that. But like,
well, we're not going to talk about the boxing. Come on now. This is all these people are talking about. We talk about names,
but like, we're not using this as a forum to like call out other people's channels. But mate, look, I agree with everything you've said. I don't disagree with the argument that you're making. I don't, but I also don't think it's addressing the fundamental point. Yes, do I believe Al Heyman has the money? Yes. Do I believe he's got a track record of putting on those fights? Yes. But the way they've gone about it, for me, suggests that this isn't a real offer. You know, is Deontay Wilder ducking? No, he's not ducking. No, neither of them are ducking. But that's not a serious offer, is it? How could you not meet him to discuss the biggest fight in heavyweight boxing history?
I'll tell you why they're not meeting for discussions, right? Is because they've put it forward an outline of this thing. We're going to give you a $50 million guarantee with upside, okay? And immediately when you see Eddie Hearn's response is precisely, oh, well, the money has to be in escrow. We haven't seen the final papers, blah, blah, blah. We need to discuss these and other things. He said, I'm interested in the $50 million, quote, I'm not interested in the splits. Okay. So they know that that's not a goer. What are you going to do? Like, there's loads of things. When Joshua had to do, when Eddie Hearn was doing the Klitschko stuff, most of that stuff is done over emails. He did it. Who did he do it with? He did it with fucking Shelley Finkel. You think Shelley Finkel, who's done more pay-per-views and bigger numbers than Eddie Hearn has ever done? Al Heyman has done 10 times, literally 10 times the stuff. And we think Eddie Hearn lies repeatedly about all of these negotiations. And people take him at his word.
But you do not
British people just
fucking unbelievable.
Tom, you have a bit of an
Absolutely
agenda. You have a bit of an agenda though when it comes to Eddie Hearn, and I think that's unfair because
I do think you are somewhat. You are so strong in your dislike. My point is,
yes, but I'm not making up facts. There's not a fact I've made up. Every single fact.
But Tom, the fact that you're saying it's reasonable for them to just completely refuse to meet him, because sometimes things are done over emails. But Eddie Hearn was in the US anyway. They had meetings scheduled.
You're taking Eddie Hearn at his word again.
They haven't,
just like he's lied about other things.
Oh man!
Tom, my point is, go back to your advertising example, right? You say you're drawing up these big contracts with prospective clients.
I'm not saying they're exactly similar. I'm just saying that, the way Eddie Hearn is talking about how these fights are made is a lie, as Shelley Finkel pointed out, because they've done it together already for the Klitschko and the AJ fight. They didn't do it. I hear
you. My point is, you go back to your example you gave earlier, and you're saying, would you discuss terms before putting out a contract? Absolutely. Well, the way I'm looking at it is, Wilder's thrown out a number of 50, and it's not like Hearn saying, we can't discuss this without a meeting. It's not like Hearn saying, we can't go anywhere with that. Hearn has been clear. They are very, very interested in the $50 million. Before agreeing to make the fight, they've got to go through the terms. It's not like...
but he explicitly said they're not interested in the splits. Explicitly said it. The dollar, the guarantee, and not the splits. Go check I think it's Radio Raheem, or it's IFL. And he says, it's IFL. It's with James Helder in America. Interested in the $50 million, not the splits. So that offer has not been accepted. Now, whether they're going to come back and need more hours, I think this fight's going to get done. But what I can't stand is all the fucking people swallowing what one side is saying. And it's bizarre. I like listening to this channel called Blood Boxing because he's a funny bastard who does blood boxing, but he's a total fanboy for American fighters, right? And it's I'm startled that he's talking more sense than all the British channels that I like, as in, because literally it's just mind blowing that one side offers a low ball offer, another side offer the highest guarantee in heavyweight history, backed by the #1 money man in boxing history, and which side is shown to be fucking, are we saying is a fake offer? It's just mind blowing. You couldn't make that shit up.
It's the side that won't even meet to discuss it.
Paul, you don't even know, and I don't even know what that's about.
You don't know, Tom, and you're saying, well, in advertising, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's not the same business. So you can't say that's not how business is done. It's not how a boxing contract is made. None of us can say that, mate.
Yeah, Shelley Finkel comes.
But is Shelley Finkel and Al Heyman, do they always speak the truth? Do they always put out what is the truth?
Exactly.
No chance. No chance.
Okay. That's fair enough. But look at the track record. Look at the track record in these negotiations so far. The one side that has repeatedly lied has been Eddie Hearn. The one party. It's just facts. And if you don't like the facts, Paul, that's fair enough. I know you're an AJ.
I don't like facts. I don't like the way you just seem to just I think I'm pretty sure that they could say so basically, and we're going to have a fucking treasure hunt type thing. If you can find the contract within half an hour, we'll make the fight. And I'm pretty sure you'd defend that if Eddie Hearn was on the other side of it. That's the problem. That's the thing I don't like, is you are so biased against Eddie Hearn.
Why did I not say earlier on tonight?
I can remember a time when we all sat on this podcast and said they're all fucking liars. Now you seem to be saying, of the opinion that, well, if Shelley Finkel says it, it's true. But Eddie Hearn's the only liar here.
I'm not.
Let me bring it back to that, because
I'm saying literally
here. Tom, do you think that they were wrong not to meet Eddie Hearn?
I don't know. Look. The way I put it is, no, you're gonna laugh before I even say a thing. Who knows what is going on behind the scenes of these negotiations? Eddie Hearn is liable to say they won't meet us. That could be something like as simple as he wants to meet with somebody on this time. They can't do it. We'll do it over emails, or we do it over that.
Oh, it could be as simple as they didn't want to meet him. They didn't want to meet him.
Yeah, that is possible. That is possible. That's possible. I'm not ruling it out. But the best offer, the most realistic business offer that's come in, has come in from the one side, and it's been turned down by the other side because the splits weren't right. That's fair enough.
It hasn't been turned down. It hasn't been turned down.
It has been turned down because they're putting in a counter offer.
Yeah, but what are the stipulations with that $50 million offer?
Nobody knows.
How do they know what they require? Like Eddie Hearn has said, what a lot of boxers have said is that you can say you're going to give 50 million, but what are the stipulations behind that 50 million? What does it entail? What are we signing ourselves into? Before we can negotiate a contract and get a contract in front of us, we'd like to know what your idea is behind this. Okay.
Do you think?
What about the TV deals? What about the sponsorship? What about the dates? What about this? What about that? You know, until you get a contract in front, I think they use the contract as a broad term. Let's see a contract, like a physical contract. I understand that's not going to happen but at least you've got to meet the people and say, right, this entails this, and this, and this is what you get for your 50 million quid, and this is what we expect. Now,
it's amazing all
these
boxing fans that think that they know exactly about how all these things do. And you got two guys who've done the biggest pay-per-views in history on one side, and another guy.
I'm not saying that it's not a good deal. What I'm saying is, we would like to know the stipulations. If someone's going to offer you a job and say we're going to pay you X amount, I'd like to know, well, what does the job entail?
I think you're ever so slightly guilty of that yourself, mate. Though I mean,
who?
You. I love you dearly, but I think you're slightly guilty of thinking that you've got every single answer from your seat. Everyone's got an opinion on it.
I know, but what I'm trying to say is that, for example, I assumed that it wasn't a one-liner going over to Eddie Hearn. Yeah, Eddie Hearn has never released it. If it was a one-liner, he sure as fuck would have released it and showed it. I'm sure it has some stuff in it. It's not as simple as
that. You're making a
okay. Right, there's one. Right, you're right. Shelley Finkel could have sent a one-liner over there, and the whole thing could have been a fake. That is a possibility. But if you're trying to make up probabilities of which is most likely, it sounds completely unrealistic to me.
And you would go with like Eddie Hearn? So on the other side?
Yeah, because he repeatedly, in this instance of making this specific fight, he has made repeated lies that have been found out. Yeah, repeated lies.
Can I just say, so far, when Eddie Hearn has said something or something's happened that they want to sort of refute or whatever or deny, they come out and say it. Well, no, they've even brought printouts of emails to press conferences and stuff. So when Eddie Hearn's saying they just won't meet me, why have they not denied that, Tom? If you're saying, well, Eddie Hearn could be lying about it and whatnot, why have they not come out and denied that?
Why? Because there's many reasons why. Maybe Eddie Hearn, maybe the terms that Eddie Hearn is offering them back to negotiate, they don't think are good. Just like, say, the initial offer from Eddie Hearn that went over for $12.5 million.
That's not what I asked, Tom.
Wait, no, yeah, but I'm talking about it. Try and give you a proper answer. They didn't meet with Eddie Hearn to negotiate then because they thought it was a bullshit offer, right? They come up with another one. Maybe Eddie Hearn wants to meet and talk about stuff, and maybe they're not interested in the terms Eddie Hearn is offering. Just like, you know, so who knows? I think this fight will get made. I hope it gets made next. I actually think it will get made next.
I don't.
But
Brazil's already, as far as I've heard, Brazil's already been made.
Yeah, and as far as I've heard, Jarrell Miller has also been made. So it's likeness for likeness. You can't just use a one-side Paul just because he's your bum buddy.
On that note, guys, I'm really sorry to draw a close to this because I'm sure it'll be a massive ratings hit. Mrs. Gossip has just arrived, and I have promised to help her unload her car. She's moving in furniture, to be fair, so it's not just like the shopping. Yeah, if that isn't the worst excuse in podcast history, I don't know what is. I've got to run, or else I'll get a terrible bollocking. She's been waiting outside in the car for about 10 minutes.
Sorry, Dawson. Sorry, Gossip.
Saying that's Irish Tom's fault. So, yeah. Anyway, on that note, I'll wrap it up. Thank you to all the panelists. Whether we agree or disagree, it's always a good discussion. Looking forward to seeing who's right on Haye Bellew. And we'll be back next Wednesday. Have a good evening, everyone.
See you guys.
Apologies, Mrs. Gossip. War Irish.